Hi, you've tuned in to Construction Connections powered by CURT. CURT stands for the Construction Users Roundtable, CURT for short, of course, and I'm its president, Greg Sizemore, and we're glad that you've joined us today. CURT is an organization of primarily owners who share resources, perspectives, and experiences in order to make their projects simply go better. From time to time on this podcast, we host some notable leaders in the construction space, introduce them to you so you can grab values, research them, and explore what content they have to share. We're glad you're with us. If you want to know more about CURT, CURT.org, it's that simple. CURT.org is our website, and we'd be happy to have you research us, or if you'd rather call the CURT office, the number's in the website, and ask for Rana. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're happy to have one of the industry's leaders, and his name is Mr. Kevin Sell. Kevin is the Senior Manager for Corporate Development at Quest Group, LLC. Quest is a heavy, multidisciplined civil contractor based in Perrysburg, Ohio, with regional offices in Roanoke and in Dallas and in Charlotte. His education credentials are many, including degrees in fire science, business administration from Northern Kentucky University, a bachelor's degree in safety engineering from the University of Cincinnati, go Bearcats, and a master's degree in construction management from Clemson University. He's been in this business for nigh on 3 decades, and he is a contributing author to various books and studies. He knows safety issues in construction inside and out. But today, we're going to spend a little bit of time with Kevin talking about pre-construction delays and the study that we've undertaken to learn more about it. So let's welcome Kevin at this point. Kevin, thank you for joining us. We're
Greg,
glad
thanks.
you're here.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be with you on Construction Connections and talk about some exciting stuff that we're doing within CURT and for the industry.
And for the industry. And as you know, Kevin, this is a place where we begin to explore and address and promote the challenges and innovations that shape our industry. We're talking today, Kevin, about one of the biggest pain points in the entire project process, and that's pre-construction delays, projects stalling before they even break ground at times. Give us a little bit more about what the key elements of pre-construction delays are. What does that even mean? What has been your experience?
So from the construction side of it, the contractor side of it, it's always been we're always well aware of permit delays. But what really brought this to light was the CURT initiative to start a sprint research team, which I chair, and bringing the users together. Because as you well know, as president of CURT, it's all about what the users are seeing and what they're feeling. So when we amass that group, we have assumptions as contractors, but we wanted the reality from the users. So pre-construction delays are certainly permits. In some areas, it's government regulation that may or may not be related to a permit, but it's also, everything that comes upon a site that they're going to develop. So you could start with an archaeological find. You could start with a species of something that's in a waterway or near a waterway. In some cases, depending on financing, can also be, and we haven't really delved into that yet. We think the research is going to pull that out. But some of the start-stop mechanisms up front that our users face in terms of getting going and staying going. So a lot of them, at least the ones that we know in CURT, try to do everything they can against a false start. So we know how dangerous that can be to a project and to the workforce, because you can't do that with a workforce either, nor can you say we're going to start and you put a couple hundred people on site and there's nothing to do. So, there's going to be things that we think are all going to lead to maybe design issues too. Some maybe a lack of clarity there where they're not really sure what they want, but yet the hourglass is still ticking. So we tend to force ourselves, and I'm talking about the industry as a whole, we tend to force ourselves into saying, well, let's just get there and do it. We can't do that anymore, and we have to start, and the members of CURT have told us clearly, let's start with pre-con delays, because those almost 9 times out of 10 create everything else on the other end of that curve.
That is so true. And tell us a little bit. So this summer we've inked the deal between the Construction Users Roundtable and the Simplar Foundation, which you have introduced us to over the course of the many years, and they've been very faithful contributors to CURT over the past few years. We're very grateful for that. Tell us a little bit about Simplar and what it is they do and why we selected Simplar as a partner in this study.
Sure. Well, I can go back and talk about the challenges that we had as CURT getting actual research, workable data, things that we can use, but more especially, and you know this probably more than anyone in the organization, working with researchers without red tape and without them handcuffing the actual organization that's paying them. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but you know this, and anybody listening that's with a particular university knows that that's what happens. And it's the same. We're not picking on any one university. They all do it. So the Simplar Research Foundation, you had some pretty smart people say, hey, I'm a PhD at Arizona State. You're a PhD at UNC Charlotte, and you're a PhD or PhD at University of Kansas. Why don't we collaborate away from the university on things that matter? So the Simplar Research Foundation is really into not only the construction industry itself, but you can look at, they have a lot of research on procurement, materials, contracts, workforce, supply chain, facilities management. So they're pretty deep and wide because they had the sense to build an architecture, if you will, of research that can do all of that. And they've been doing it for a long time. You've met them. They're super smart
They
young
are.
people that just love this stuff, and their passion comes through in the research. So yeah, I was introduced to them, probably first met them about 8 years ago. We were working on a collaborative execution project, and the team at the time said, and we still believe this to this day, that we wanted to have research on this because we don't want to be telling the story because it's going to be perceived as a marketing ploy. And it isn't. It's real. So you have them do the white paper research paper, and people go, holy cow, this is really something. So there's a different perception when it comes across as research. And we at CURT, we wanted that same perception because we have some members of CURT that are user members. They're going to want to take this back to their board, in my opinion, and say, okay, now we have valid research affirmed by multidiscipline PhDs, and this is what's hurting our projects all across the US and in every industry.
That's fascinating. So we believe, as you do, and as the Simplar friends do, that CURT plus Simplar will equal an effective collaboration with outputs and data and affirmations of things, steps perhaps that can be taken to prevent these very costly pre-construction delays. Tell us what the statement of work entails, Kevin. I'm sure you're familiar with it and what it is they're going to do. And again, they're just getting started. We inked the deal this summer. What is it they're going to do specifically for us, and where's the high value proposition?
So the researchers at Simplar are going to work with our user members as well as user members outside our organization because we just need the data, and they want to make it workable data.
Hmm.
There's one thing to say that it's useful or it's entertaining. It's another thing altogether to say that it's workable.
Mm.
So they're going to need to look at specifically let's just use energy and steel as two examples. You would think, well, if I'm building a, you know, uh, combined cycle power plant, or if I'm building a steel mill, oh, well, these are completely different. And they are in terms of scope, but they're not when you get them in the room and you start talking about pre-con delays. So they're going to be assigning researchers to the users to say, give us the data on pre-construction issues, why you didn't meet schedule, if pricing changed, why, and what delay was that. And we're seeing things beyond. I mean, some of the most interesting things that we're seeing is beyond a permit. So there's two levels of permits when you're talking about government regulation. And in some cases, because you and I and others in CURT leadership have been working, on looking at, well, what does the government do to hold us back? And a lot of that's pre-con, but some of that's midstream. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at the pre-con side.
Right. That you bring up such an excellent point. One of the biggest concerns that I think we have, and it's a nonpartisan comment, is when the administration goes out and we all applaud all the money and investment coming back from the Mideast, and they talk in terms of billions and hundreds of millions. The challenge is with pre-construction delays, there's a lot of governmental regulations that serve as impediments, obstacles, sometimes dead ends and dry holes that make some of what the administration is promising very challenging to deliver. And another area is, of course, as you well know, in the area of workforce development, where do we have enough people, both on the professionals, well, they're all professionals, both on the management side and on the craft side, to deliver what you hear touted and applauded on the nightly news. So it seems to me that this research is going to help us identify, and then the group will help address areas where we can take action. And it might even require a greater collaboration than even CURT and Simplar. Talk to us a little bit about your past experience. You've had almost 3 decades, maybe more, on all this stuff. Talk to us a little bit about the implications of unintended or the unintended consequences of these government regulations, which impede and slow and sometimes derail projects. What do you know about those? And
So most of the impact,
can
right?
we improve it?
Most of the impact, I would argue, in the current state is lack of infrastructure. So
Mm,
you go to build a new state-of-the-art mill or plant somewhere, in the state that you're going to is welcoming and everything else, but there are also federal issues that crisscross. And you can't, there's a 2-lane road, you need 4-lane. You have railroad interference, and you need help with that to reroute or schedule it. But there's also, and it is, to your point, the research is politically agnostic, and so is our mission moving forward. We're going to work with anybody that wants to help remove the barriers, just so we can all do our jobs. So a lot of it's infrastructure. Some of it clearly is environmental, and you have to see what the reality. A lot of times we don't understand it. For example, there was one mill where they had to relocate mussels. Now, you and I know in our area and even in the Great Lakes, zebra mussels are an invasive species, and you're not really predicting at all that you're going to have to move them. So that's now you have multiple other federal agencies involved with multiple checkpoints, and it just needs to be streamlined. We need to flatten. We talked a lot over the years about flattening the transactional curve. And we're seeing that with smart contracts and blockchain. Well, we have to figure out, well, how do we do that on a pre-con delay in 2 components? Those that are self-inflicted and those that are imposed by one government or another. Because if you're building a mill in the middle of nowhere, you've got county government that's never had anything this big, and sometimes they're not looking at it the right way, and then they're fighting with the state government who's fighting with the federal government. So it's a matter of getting all three of those, and boy, that can be a challenge, especially depending on, if you had one party in charge here, you had multiple parties in charge there. A lot of times, and unfortunately for us, we have to get them to the table just to do something right and to communicate to do the right thing. Some of the other things in the industry we've seen too is that you have a big project and it makes sense. Look, finding land is a big deal. You're not going to plop a 2,000 acre new plant down in the middle of Cincinnati, not even in Hamilton County.
right.
So if you go put it somewhere else and you're going to bring in a lot of people, we're also seeing that, well, okay, well, where are the people going to stay? And the non-industry people look at us and they say, well, they just bring their campers. Well, they do, but where are they going to park them? Where's the connections for, sewer, water, electric? And you start thinking of all those things and it's not there. Well, now you have a schedule that's going to start, but nobody's done anything to prepare the area for that. And then you got to figure out, well, okay, well, whose problem is that? And then you get finger pointing. Well, then that causes a delay, which causes, there's such a domino. I think when we see the end of the research, we're going to see some domino impacts where one thing triggers several.
So we feel in our gut that this will save a lot of money. I think the other thing we want to know is, well, just how much savings is there as we address these issues? I think the second thing we need to identify is there are these stretch goals in this study that might require greater collaboration with other industry stakeholders. Then there's the low-hanging fruit that perhaps a one-off owner or one-off contractor or sub can do to decrease the risk and the impact of the impediment. This is going to be and have industry-wide implications, is it not? And
It
who
will.
else? I mean, is there a role here for organized trades, for the contractor associations? Talk to us a little bit about that, about where the touch points might meet with our research and the other stakeholders that could help us do something about all of it.
Sure, we're going to see that come out, and it is our hope that we have a couple of users that want to apply it where we can hopefully team them with Simplar to capture it.
So we're
So
going
in
to
that
kind of beta test this thing before we widely promote it.
Yeah, because there's some better practices that can be applied, but there's also being able to quantify that in terms of, even if it's in terms of schedule, there's still financial impact, we all know, to schedule. So it's just a matter of using that research and finding out, okay, well, we need to try this. Try these things to prevent it and see where you come out, see if that happens. But to your point of everybody being involved, well, absolutely. There's places that have, in certain areas of the country, that have agreements with organized labor, for example. Well, organized labor is going to have to be talking about that, and I would venture to say if we were to ask them, they would say, yeah, we're seeing the same pre-con delays. So I would say that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a merit shop or organized labor or whatever umbrella you fall under. It's the same, and everybody's going to have to do the same thing to help correct it.
So CURT has always prided itself in being out there, being a leader, whether it was helping develop the McLeamy curve, the CURT tripartite initiative, the 3XPT, where we brought the owners and the designers and the contractors together at the same time as projects are planned and executed. This call to action for the listeners on here today, what could they do? What would you encourage them to do as an action subsequent to this podcast and primarily subsequent to the research outputs?
So I would say if you're listening to this broadcast, to what we're talking about, and you know of something you're passionate about, or you know a constant issue that you see, even if you're a contractor, that you call that in or you email it into the CURT office so we can get it to the research team so we can look at it a little bit more closely. Because what you're going to find is just because you're sitting in your office watching this and you're saying, well, my issue is not the same as the others. I got news for you. When we put all the users in the room and the research sprint team, it took about 30 minutes for them to start talking about similar things. So it doesn't matter. And in some cases, if you're a construction contractor member of CURT, you may have a customer that's not a CURT member that would benefit from this because of the experiences you've had over what could be decades. We're just starting to see it because we've tended as an industry to academically lump everything into a delay. This is the first time that I've really seen CURT or really any other organization specifically go full on research for pre-con delays, because that was something that also came out from the sprint team. You had 4 different user industries represented, and we got into this big discussion. It was all these delays, and somebody said, no, what will help us, let's just focus on pre-construction delays. And that's how we got to where we are today.
So I'm going to ask you something. This is extemporaneous for our listeners and viewers. It wasn't on the prep sheet, but Kevin's a pretty well-renowned leader in the industry. He's got a lot of insight. AI is being reported out, the uses of AI, every night on the evening news. Everywhere across the internet, people are saying it's the next big industrial revolution is the development and the use of agentic AI and problem solving. Is there space for AI? And I know this is strictly conjecture. How do you think AI plays in this in these outputs? And again, I'm going strictly from Greg to Kevin's mind and experience. Any thoughts on AI's role in eliminating or preventing pre-construction delays?
So probably in the analytical sense, yes. But it's used as a supplement, not as a means to an end or as a sole source, because we all know that AI can be wrong.
Yes.
It's depending on what its learning environment is. And it's a little bit better than garbage in or garbage out. But if you had an AI system and you fed it a lot of garbage, it thinks garbage. So it's going to come up with stuff that's necessarily not going to be very accurate. There's also the moving component, and this was just featured at a conference I was at this week in DC, near DC, is that there's also the movement component of it. So we've seen all these bots, and we've even had pictures of it at CURT conferences where they're stacking stuff. Well, if it's a simple process, that's fine. But how many times do you see a craft professional just do one thing? They don't. Conditions change, and that's what they are not able to train the current AI functioning robots that are considered autonomous. They're autonomous for a singular task,
Hmm.
but if it gets too much data, there's still that human component that rationalizes change.
Interesting. It's going to be fun to see how all that plays out, not only in this particular issue, pre-construction delays, but in other aspects of our business. I think we have yet to see how formidable this tool is and will be in the future. Well, you've talked a lot about CURT, the Construction Users Roundtable. And again, for our listeners, you have tuned in to Construction Connections powered by CURT, and you've been around us for a long time. Share with our listeners and viewers what you feel some of the major benefits and features and value prop is of the Construction Users Roundtable to folks like you in the industry, contractors, owners, vendors, etc.
So, I mean, we exist because, quite frankly, coats ceased to exist,
There's
and
an old
you
name. Yeah.
you had the courage and the smarts to say we can't just let this die. It's too important of a group, which is then when CURT was founded. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a unique organization to where you have users and contractors and suppliers
Mm-hmm.
working on similar things that are focused on the user or the industry. So when I say by industry, for example, we have Safety Summit where we brought in most recently, total human health, suicide prevention, those things. So that's another one of those avenues that CURT's always seeking to find something different to put at the table that maybe the contractor or user member or supplier member is not thinking of. And the good thing is we have a really good diverse membership, meaning that we have different areas of expertise. I don't know that if we didn't want to, I don't think we would ever have to go outside of CURT to get specific expertise for the industry. But we're always wanting more people because more people bring more ideas. So I think the value proposition is that um, if you're a contractor, there are users, and you're going to learn more about what the users require that should make you a better contractor. If you're a user, then the membership value proposition is that you're able to talk with contractors in an intimate yet non-interfering environment where we're all there for one purpose. It's very clear, and you and your staff, Greg, do a really good job of saying this is why we're here. Remember why we're here. We're here to work together and to solve things together. So, if you're a user out there and you're thinking, well, I really don't have any, other organizations you may belong to because it's specific to the industry, but CURT is for all users. And what you may find is you may be a user in a industry where you think that you have nothing in common, but I would challenge you to come to a CURT event and see that that's not the case.
Appreciate that. That warms our hearts as we listen to your response to that question. So, if you're interested in learning more, CURT.org is the website. The number for our office will be there, and you need to talk to Ron if you choose to call. Our next meeting is in November. Those dates are also on the website, and I think we're going to be emphasizing safety. Also, our Project Excellence Awards will be presented there. And then at the National Conference, February the 2nd through the 4th in Orlando, Florida, we've got probably an opportunity for this research that you've heard described here be presented. So we're looking forward to that. CURTevents.com, CURTevents.com, all one word, will get you right to our events. And of course, if you're listening to this in a timely fashion, we have meetings right here in Cincinnati coming up the week after next. I think it's the 14th, 15th, and 16th at the Marriott Airport Hotel. And we would invite you to come on over and be a part. We'll make you feel very welcomed. And we would love to have your resources, experiences, and perspectives as well. You've been listening to Kevin Sell from Quest Corporation, who is a tremendous leader in this business. He is passionate, he is knowledgeable, he is generous with his time and with his resources. And so, Kevin, we want to thank you for taking time to be with us today. I know you're traveling and you just hopped off a plane less than an hour ago. So,
Yeah, I just landed a
thank
couple hours ago. But look, I mean, on behalf of all of us at Quest Group, our team is very supportive of CURT. We want to do all that we can we're a part of the industry, but we also want to give back.
And so, again, you've been listening to Construction Connections powered by CURT, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us.